All right, everybody. So it's another episode. I believe this is episode 18 of Hillsborough and Hunterdon Real. And what I do on this show is highlight the local experts and whatnot. So today, I have a very familiar, guest with me, Coach Mike Daley. So, Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So this will be an interesting conversation because for those of you that don't know Mike, he came to me, I'd say 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years.
So about 6 years ago. It's before Braxton was born, and he was looking to intern and just kind of volunteer. So we'll get into that. And from that time, Mike's progressed. He was our head trainer, and now he's moving into the CEO role, which is really neat to watch. So, Mike, why don't you start out just by telling people, about your family life. You just got married last year, so talk about that. Talk about where you live. Talk about where you went to, where you grew up, basically.
All right. I grew up pretty local, Hillsborough and Somerville. Went back and forth between the two. I went to Immaculata High School, same as Coach Dana, even though she's a little older than me. Played baseball growing up. That was kind of my life revolved around athletics, but primarily baseball. Went to college, played baseball, went to a junior college in North Carolina for 2 years, went to Kane up in Union for 2 years. And so baseball kind of ruled my life for the first 20 years of my life, and then kind of got into this profession, was able to intern with you guys, and then the rest is history from there.
So talk about baseball. I know it's been a big part of your life. How did you, what sparked the interest in that? Why did that become the sport that you chose to go with?
I'm honestly not sure. I mean, my dad likes baseball. My grandfather likes baseball. I think it just stuck from an early age. I played baseball, soccer growing up. And then I kind of got to a point where I had to pick one or the other because baseball at the time was starting to turn into more of a year-long sport. So that's kind of when I was young. I played baseball in the spring, summer, fall, winter, you name it. I played up here at Diamond Nation. So we had the indoor bubble. So we were literally playing all year round.
Okay. And did your brother play baseball?
He did, yeah. Yeah, he played through high school.
Okay. I didn't realize he played through high school.
Yeah. So he's 2 years younger than me.
Got it. So what about you finished? I know you finished your career as a pitcher, but talk about that. Was that always what you wanted to do within baseball? Was be a pitcher, or was that kind of an evolution?
Kind of a forced evolution. I was a middle infielder in high school. Loved it. I loved kind of the reactionary aspect of it. I loved hitting. Then unfortunately I got hurt junior year. I fractured my L5-S1 vertebrae in 2 places, which required surgery. After that surgery, I really I could swing a bat, but I couldn't swing enough. I couldn't do enough repetitions where I could actually continue to get better at it. Because for baseball players, you got to take hundreds of swings a day off the tee, and it was something that I just couldn't do anymore. So then I transitioned to trying to pitch. And then I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to go to a junior college. Junior college, for baseball at least, is kind of a transition if you don't. I was getting some looks, and then obviously nobody wants a kid with a broken back. So I had to kind of rebuild my name and reputation as a pitcher. So I had an opportunity to go to North Carolina for 2 years and try to make my name as a pitcher and get recruited for pitching and learn how to pitch. I mean, I was always lucky that I had a good arm. I think I was lucky that I didn't waste my arm. I think a lot of kids now, when they start pitching so young, their arm just gets shot. So I was lucky that I kind of didn't wear out my arm over the first couple of years.
So prior to switching to that because of the injury, had you pitched in Little League? Had you pitched at all before? No. So that was
I pitched 1 game in high school.
Okay. And for the JUCO, you went. It was at Lewisburg, right?
Yeah. Right by Raleigh in North Carolina. I pitched a little bit in the summer, but it was a few innings here, a few innings there. It really wasn't. I wasn't a pitcher. I just threw the ball.
So from Lewisburg, you're down there 2 years.
Yeah.
What made you decide to come back up to Kane? Like, how did that transpire?
I had a coach in Flemington, Steve Farcia. He had a really good relationship with the guys at Kane. I I trusted Farcia with pretty much a lot of my baseball career, and we talked a lot about it, and it just seemed like Kane was the right move. They had some great pitching guys there that could help me develop. Part of it was to be closer to home so my parents could watch me play more consistently. At that point, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be baseball wasn't going to be my career. So I'd rather at least have them be able to see me play more than once a year, more than on the computer. So they were able to be at every game, which was nice.
And from there, I remember you telling me you played not like it's Cape Cod League, but it was a different league, right? Where you were playing in the summers. Didn't you play? Tell us about that experience, where you played throughout the country.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, growing up, we were able to go to, Georgia, Florida, kind of the warmer states in the fall and play. But after my junior year, I had the opportunity to go play in Canada. It was the Northwoods League, so it's a college summer league. For people around here, it's kind of like playing at Patriot Stadium, Somerset Patriot Stadium. You kind of have a pretty good crowd, a couple thousand people. Nice. So it was a cool thing to play in front of. I lived with a host family. We traveled hours and hours and hours on a terrible school bus, and I mean, it was an experience because you would play a night game, you wouldn't get the shower, you'd hop on the bus, you'd drive 8 hours through the night, sleep on the bus, get to the hotel in the morning, take a quick nap, and then you're at the field again, and you repeat it for 75 games.
Okay. 75 games within the span of a summer?
Yeah, 75 games in 76 days.
No kidding. So you guys didn't really get to practice then, right?
No, we would get to the field a couple hours early, and that was it. I mean, it was all on that team. I had two of my teammates on the team with me, and the rest were from literally all over the country.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was the name of that? What was the name of the mascot for that team?
The Border Cats.
What was it?
Border Cat.
Border Cats. That's cool.
Yeah, we were the only Canadian team, which is kind of ironic because none of us were actually Canadian.
So you guys would travel across the border.
Yeah.
Or teams would travel up there to play.
Yeah, we went Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and just different cities in there.
It's the Big Ten country. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. I mean, hearing like the tornado sirens in Iowa, it was wild.
Nice. Now let's go back to your injury. So I remember, when we first met and hearing about the injury. Explain, briefly, just, to get too in depth with the surgery, and then what did you learn from it? How did it change your life?
Yeah, so I had symmetrical fractures on my L5-S1. So pretty much, they're called pars fractures. So the set joint on the sides, they were broken on each side. So I tried every procedure out there before I had the major surgery. They went in and tried to cauterize the nerves so I couldn't feel any of the pain. PT, you name it, we tried it. So from there, I went to hospital for special surgery in New York. They put a screw on both sides, synthetic bone protein, in hopes of regenerating some of the fracture, and then wrapped it in a wire. So 2 screws and a wire, which I still have.
Still got it.
Yeah. I didn't want to go back and have surgery again.
Yeah, but that's if you can avoid it. How does it feel nowadays?
It's good. I mean, obviously, the age-old saying of "I wish I knew then what I know now." If I could go back, I probably wouldn't have had the surgery because I still had pain in my playing days. I still went through what a lot of people go through and trying to manage pain while I'm still playing just to finish out my college career. A lot of it could have been mental. It could have been stress-related. It could have been, who knows? But if I could go back in time, I probably would have avoided that surgery just to see. If I knew then what I know now, I would have tried some different non-surgical modalities to fix that issue.
Yeah, and it's now you can give advice on it though.
Yeah, I can tell people to learn from my mistakes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's transition then into what were you studying at Kane? What was it, exercise science or phys ed?
Primarily it was business. I was studying business. Yeah, I made the brilliant decision of switching my major halfway through my junior year, but I just found myself in all these business and economics classes, Googling training articles and reading training articles on T Nation and Elite FTS and all these forums. And at one point I figured, what am I doing? paying money for these classes and I'm not even paying attention. I'm doing something else. So
Yeah.
I decided to transition to exercise science. It was in the physical education department at Kane.
Okay. And I remember, so one of our coaches that used to work for us, Kevin Wagner, was a professor there. And you didn't have Kevin, I don't believe, right? You just
No, I didn't.
that he worked there.
Yep.
So how did that connection come about? Because it's interesting. You know, you reached out to me to see if you could help or whatnot. I thought it was a connection through Kevin, but it wasn't directly. So how did that come about?
One of my teammates actually had Kevin as a professor. He works at a gym in South Jersey still. He had Kevin as a professor and said, hey, I think this is in your area. You should definitely reach out and see if you can get an internship spot there and try to help out. So I knew I had an internship class the following year, but I don't know. I didn't see the need to wait. So I reached out. I think I got your number through Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
I just said that I was looking to learn the industry a little bit, help out, intern, shadow, whatever the case was, just to get my foot in the door somewhere. I mean, it was one of the more reputable places in the area. So I figured what better place to start.
Yeah. And I remember, you know, I've had before that a lot of interns and to be frank, a lot of them are flakes. You know, they'll come in, they leave, you know, whatever. You try to help them. But I remember guys with Mike, so he was there for, I don't know, it was maybe a month and then he went back to school, I think. So it wasn't that late. You said, hey, I just want to, you know, get some experience and whatnot. And I, you know, in my mind, based on my prior experiences with people, I was expecting, okay, I'll never hear from this guy again. But Mike continued to reach out and he would periodically ask what he should be studying and he just stayed on it. So it was that persistence that paid off for him. And then that summer, I remember a story where Mike, at the time, guys, the gym was not the same size. It was largely me and Dana, pretty much. Kevin was there still a little bit, but it was pretty much me and Dana. So Mike was interning that summer as well, and it was really busy. It was going to be a busy week. Dana had bronchitis. One of our other guys, I think Sean was there, his lung collapsed. It was just crazy, but Mike decided to come. I think he had a game. I think you had a game, but you came on the way to the game to help out. And I always remembered that, you know, because it was chaotic, but he stepped up. And, you know, and then it was shortly after that, I think you had another year. That was your senior year. No, was that your junior year? What?
That was my senior year of baseball, and I had one extra year because I changed my major late, so I had one extra year of school.
Okay. And I mean, since that time, guys, Mike's been with us. You know, he has a deep interest in training. So talk about, you know, I think you were the head trainer for about 2 years or maybe even a little longer. So talk about what interested you in that as far as kind of taking the coaches under your tutelage and talk a little bit about that experience and we'll transition into what you're doing now.
Cool. Yeah. I think my biggest struggle in education was figuring out who were the right people to listen to, what's right, what's wrong. And just over time, learning from you, learning from other people in the industry, you start to learn who the right people are to follow, to read, to listen to. So I kind of wanted to be that source of information for the other coaches. So there's less of a gap. You know, it's easier, hey, read this guy and this guy. They're not going to lead you wrong versus trying to filter out. As you know, there's a lot of information out there that isn't necessarily the greatest. So sometimes it's hard to filter out. You know, you don't know what's right. You don't know what's wrong. A lot of people make good points that sound like good points, but in reality, they don't translate. And school was good, but it doesn't give you practical knowledge. If we had people just coming right from school, they don't have any practical knowledge on how the gym is actually going to run, how actual client interactions are going to be. So I just wanted to kind of bridge that gap between school or whatever their education was and real life training.
Yeah, and it was cool to watch, you know, how you did that and you know, kind of how you stepped up into that role. And, you know, now about, you know, maybe we made that decision 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Mike is moving over into the CEO role of Newell Strength and you know, he's really going to be driving the ship. So what made you interested in that, right? Because you kind of gone, and this is what happens, you know, at least in my experience, where I did it because it was a passion. and then you got to transition to running the business. So you're kind of doing the same thing. Braxton's up there shooting at me. You're kind of doing the same thing where you're going from the technical side, the technician side, to wanting to really take the business by the horns and run it. What has you? Why are you interested in that? What made you interested in even approaching me with that?
I think a lot of it's my dad. He's a very big entrepreneur. So I've kind of always been around that small business kind of atmosphere, and it's always been intriguing to me. I just never knew what realm it was going to pop up in. I was interested in the training. I still love to study training, read training articles, but now I just kind of feel like I'm at a point where I want to transition into more of that entrepreneurial, learn the ins and outs of the business, how to grow the business, the marketing, the sales, all of that is interesting to me, especially for a small, quote unquote, small gym.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool because you know, you obviously have been just very diligent in your growth, and I know with this role, guys, Mike's going to take it, learn like anything, like what he's done with the other stuff, take it and run with it, and I'm very excited to see, where the business goes with you leading it, over the next period of time or whatever your vision winds up being with it. Let's see here. I got a couple more questions. So, what has it been like for people that are listening to this? You're newly married. You're coming up on a year anniversary. How has that been? Like, because that's a big change in a person's in a guy's life.
Yeah, I mean it's been everybody says it's a big change. I mean I'll give Steph a shout out. I'm lucky that Steph she's a great partner. So the transition between not being married and being married was once all of the planning was done, it was all a smooth transition. We just gelled together very well. We were friends first. I think that has a big thing to do with it. We just connect on a friendship level. We have fun. We go do stuff, and we just have a good community around us that I think definitely helps us ease into the first year of marriage.
And Mike and Steph got lucky, guys. They got married in January. It was warm as heck for that time of year. It was like 65 degrees. So they were blessed with that. And it was, fortunately, before the COVID stuff hit, so many people had to cancel. So you guys snuck in there, and, I think somebody was looking out for you guys.
Yeah, everyone called us crazy for the. I thought Steph was crazy too when she said a January wedding, but it's 60 degrees, and we actually were one of the few people that got married in 2020. So we're lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, you always have that story. I didn't even think of that. It was just crazy the weather that day, and that was it was really cool. What about, you're big into education? If I ask you, and maybe there's two, but what's your favorite book or two books?
Ooh, The War of Art. I'll put the War of Art and Turning Pro in the same category. They run off of each other. I forget which one is first. Just for personal development, I think it's a short book, which I like, but they're very good on professional development, I think. And then recently, The Culture Code. I thought that was a very, very good book about anybody that has a business or has a team or anything like that. I think The Culture Code is one of the top books you can read about developing a team.
Yeah, and I know you're constantly studying it, guys. That's an important point. Mike's passion, right, his training, he's still studying that stuff, but now he studies his other stuff, the self-development, self-empowerment type of stuff. What's your favorite podcast? I know you're real big into the podcast.
I'm a big Joe Rogan guy, so I listen to a lot of the Joe Rogan Experience. If I want something more comical, there's guy Brendan Schaub. He's a comedian. I just listen to some of his stuff. If I want to, after work or something, just unwind on the way home, it's just pure, nothing educational. It's just all funny. So I'll listen to all different types of training podcasts too. But business podcasts, you have Vince has a really good podcast that I listen to. I just listen to this one. We're usually catching on Facebook, but there's a lot of good podcasts out there.
Cool. 5 years from now, what do you picture for your life? Where are you at? What are you doing?
Definitely have a family. But other than that, I don't know. Everything's great now. So I hope that I just kind of keep developing, educating myself, educating others. I hope that we get people that kind of come through the Newell Strength system that either stay and climb the ladder like I was able to do, or stay and climb and get a job elsewhere. So kind of provide a place of growth for whether it's aspiring coaches or just small business entrepreneurs, and then, like I said, having a family.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So, you got the babysitters of Braxton and Colt, though.
He'll be able to help babysit.
Yeah, exactly.
If you kind of mentioned this before, but I want to see maybe if there's something different. If you were to go back, so you're what, 27 or 28?
7, yeah.
7. If you were to go back to your 20 years old, what advice would you give yourself about life?
That it's not that serious. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm still learning. There are obviously serious parts of it, but not everything is do or die. I mean, I know one of the first things that you taught me was about the path.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I always thought that I had to be going a certain way, when in reality, no matter where you are on the path, it's your path. You know, there's no right or wrong turn. It's just a different evolution in climbing the mountain. That's life. So wherever you're at on the path, it's not wrong. It's just where you're currently at. You never know where the next step's going to take you. And I think I'm still young, so I learned it at a young age, but if I learned it younger, I think it would have been beneficial.
Yeah, less worry, right?
Exactly.
I think we all have stuff we would go back and tell our younger selves, but that's really good. And because that's what Mike's talking about with helping others become better. What he's talking about with that is something that was taught to me by Matt Fury, shared it with Mike, and Mike's going to be able to share it with people, his children, whoever, and that's the way this works. All right. So last question. If I was to ask Steph or your brother or Richie or Devin, what do you think if I said, what's Mike's superpower? What would they tell me?
Oh, that's a tough one. Superpower. I guess the ability to kind of do whatever task there is. It's not, no matter how tired or little energy I have, I can always get the task done. I kind of perseverance. Yeah, in this industry, you kind of learn to wake up early, stay up a little later. So I think that that's helped me in terms of I can kind of power through without much sleep. Not that it's a good thing, but
yeah, but you do what has to be done. Which gives me peace of mind, and it's always a balance, right? Trying to help you with your rest, but then, I know where you're coming from. All right, so I would ask you where people can find out more, but I know where they can find out more, so I'm going to put that in the notes. But yeah, Mike's working on some really cool stuff at Newell Strength. We got a lot of cool stuff coming your way. Mike, thanks for being on the show. I've been wanting to have you on, and we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.